Hi there, party people. Yeah, tag team. So this movie is about my recent dream about Devin Madgy, and I wanted to first tell you about my dream that I had with Devin Madgy in it when he was staying with me for I don't know, it was like 7 days back in 2018 on his road of remembrance. So, so he was sleeping on my living room floor back in 2018, and I was sleeping in my bedroom, and it was like maybe the second or third night that he spent the night. I had this intense dream with him in it. And afterwards, the next morning, I told Devin all about it, and he had actually confirmed that the women in my dream are women that torture him often in his dreams. And he said that he knew exactly what I was talking about. So this was the dream that I had years ago when Devin was visiting me. It was this old Victorian mansion, kind of like, I want to say it was like in New Orleans, because it was like in a neighborhood with manicured yards, but it was a very old mansion with like a porch. And we went, it was Devin and I were there, and we walked into the mansion, and it was a whorehouse, and there was all of these prostitutes, I guess, but they were very gothic. They had black, slicked, long hair, and black nylons, and black lingerie. And immediately one pulled Devin, and they were touching him, and he had a belt on, and they were pulling him by the belt. And at this point, I was in this dining room area with this long table, and I'm kind of just oh cool, Devin kind of looks at me, and I'm yeah, go do your thing. And this whore is pulling him into a room, and then she pulls him into the room, and the door shuts, and I'm okay, cool, do your thing, I'll wait here. And so I sit down at the table, and this other prostitute with black hair starts touching me and pulling on me and stuff, and I'm no thanks, thanks but no thanks, it's not I'm not into that, I'm not into girls. And she kept on touching me, trying to undo my pants, and I'm no. And she gets extremely angry, crazy mad, and she starts get the fuck out of here, get the fuck out, and starts clawing at me and pushing me, get the fuck out, get the fuck out of here, what the fuck are you doing here, super offended, going crazy. She pushes me out of the front door, and I'm outside, and then I turn around, and the door slams in my face, and I start knocking on the door. I'm let me back in, because I realize my keys are back inside the house. I left my purse in the house, and I don't know where my car is, and so I'm knocking on the door, and I'm let me back in, and I could hear them more than one woman laughing behind the door, ah. And so yeah, so then I woke up, and I told Devin all about this, and he's those are the succubi that taunt me every night. That's exactly the description of the ghosts that torment me in my sleep and never let me rest. And he basically So now I'll show you the dream that I just recently had. I'm not very cute, but I just woke up. I also want you guys to think, like, I used to recommend this other channel, Mary Moses Art. She hasn't posted in a really long time, so I don't know what happened to her. But she would do drawings of like freelance, what would you call it? Claire, not clairaudient, it'd be clairvoyant pictures. And she said that if you ever dream of a house or a mansion, that the house is whoever is trying to control you. Now, like, I'm studying like Jungian psychology. You learn like the house, like a house in a dream is yourself. Like your house is yourself. So like if you have a really big house, you have like a big ego, like a small house, a shack or whatever. But I never heard that the house that you dream in is the house that is the person that's trying to control you. And that makes a lot of sense, because like I'll have dreams like at my mother's house or at my father's house, and like the subject matter might not like have to do with my mother, but like if you look at it from an aspect, like it was in her house, so like I'm feeling like she's trying to control me. So this was at Devin's house, this dream I had. But I do find that very true, that if you when you dream of certain different houses, even like a governmental institution like a hospital or a school, like that's the thing that's trying to control you. Okay, so here's the dream I just had a couple days ago.
Hey everybody, I wanted to tell you about the intense dream I just had last night. Yeah, I had lots of very, very intense, vivid dreams. The first part of my dream, I was working in like a hospital as a doctor. I was working and running around. It was like a new job. I had my long white coat on, and I was it was kind of like a nighttime shift, and there was fluorescent lighting in the hallways, and I'm running down the hallways and then like turning the corner of the building, and there's like patients' rooms off the hallways, and I run into my old boss, and I don't want to see him. I was kind of surprised to see him because it was like a new job, and this building is also it's like a hotel as well, and it's connected to a big airport, because like I'm looking out the windows and I'm seeing, it's like twilight, and I'm seeing like airplanes take off. And so my old boss asked me if like we had like this meeting, like a doctor's event we were supposed to be at the same time, and he didn't. This is like a history in my dream, and he asked me, "Oh, did you end up wearing the bra and panties I sent you?" And for some reason I say yes, and then he says like, "Oh, well, I'll meet you up in the room later on." And this really freaks me out because I don't want anything sexual with my boss at all. So I kind of run away from him, and I need to get something in my room. Like I want to leave. I want to get on an airplane, but all my stuff's in my room, and I need to go up and get it, like to catch my plane, but I don't want to run into my old boss because he's going up there to my room because he thinks I want to like have sex with him. So I'm like running, I'm going up and down elevators, getting off at different floors, and then going up the stairwells to try to like get to my place in a roundabout way before he does, and not run into him in the hallways in the process. Then, more stuff happens in my dream. Another part of my dream, I'm kind of in this same structure house again, but it's more like a shared house, like a big mansion out. It's like a big mansion out in the snow, out in like some like wilderness land. in the snow, but it's like a big mansion house, and there's all these young people, and I'm kind of living there with the people, and we're just all like hanging out. It's like a big dark house, and I'm upstairs, and I hear commotion downstairs, and all the people are kind of going out the front door, and there's this big SUV parked in front of the front door, and people are up at the driver's side or at the passenger window talking to the person in the car, and I go up there, and it's Devin Madgy sitting in the passenger seat, and and he's like, I'm here to get my stuff, and everybody's like talking to Devin, and I'm like, oh hey Devin, and it's like the house is his house, and he had been living there with everybody else, but he had gone away for something, and I'm coming back to get my stuff, and he's still sitting in the car. It's like this big black Suburban, and I'm like, come on in, get your stuff, like come on, like this, like come on inside, why are you being weird? But it was like this weird, like he didn't want to go inside the house, and he was very like stern, and he's like, I came here to get my stuff, and I'm just like, come on in, like come on. And it was very he didn't want to go in the house, and he didn't want to run into me. And then there was another part of my dream where I was having like flying rapture, where I was flying around the neighborhood. I was like rolling down a hill chasing a car. But then the biggest part was right before I woke up. I was in some kind of like underground kind of lab, and it was a little like cartoony, like kind of purpley, like a purple underground lab with kind of like, lime green electricity kind of coming through, like kind of like mad scientist lair kind of place. And I was like the nurse assistant, but I was also kind of just this consciousness floating in the air, because I could see the nurse, but I was also kind of the nurse, and I was also the victim. But they had dragged this woman down there, like a victim, and there was like a doctor, evil scientist, but he didn't really have a face. He was kind of just like this presence, and we chained up the woman, and she was screaming, and I was like this consciousness. I was kind of watching the nurse, but I couldn't see the victim's face. I was kind of like right in front of the victim, like looking at the doctor and the nurse, and the woman was screaming, and they chained her up, and the nurse started like backing out. The nurse was like, I don't want to do it, I didn't know this is what we were doing. And the doctor is just like, shut up. And the doctor slits the victim's throat, and she's still screaming, and he takes out this giant the consciousness, like I was like surprised, but I couldn't see the victim. I could see the doctor. He takes out this giant egg out of like the victim's decapitated like throat area, this giant egg, like an ostrich egg, and it was gelatinous. It was like jiggly, like a hard-boiled egg. And then he takes it, and there's like this machine with like a ball and like two little seats on the side, and he like takes the egg, and he like splits it with his hands in two, and then he kind of molds the two it's white like jello, like a hard-boiled egg, and then he takes the two pieces and puts it on each side of this machine in these two little seats. And then I'm like thinking it's like this like fake creation, like this Frankenstein creation.